of chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. Apologize for missing that intro for you guys on the radio. I was late getting to the show tonight, so we've been solid busy all day long at the Rock, and just finished up, got here, and now I'm ready to talk about some health. So I hope everybody out there had a good day. Hope you guys survived the storms last night. I know there was a lot of damage to the west of Lubbock. I hate to hear that for you guys out there. So as long as no one died, we can replace all the stuff, right? So hang in there. I hope Leveland gets some power back soon. I heard it's been out all night and all day today. And you guys hang in there. And if you got any family members, all you guys west of town, I hope everybody's all right. I hope it wasn't too damaging for you. But we're going to talk about health. Last night we tried to break down a little bit of what happens in our body when we if we're trying to deal with anxiety or depression or post-traumatic stress or any of those sort of things. How does our exercise affect us? How does our diet affect us? How does our outlook on life affect us, right? And that's kind of what we tried to get into a little bit last night. And when you're sometimes you do these, you break it down, and it's not exactly as awesome as you wished it would have been. And so we're going to just kind of take some of those same thoughts last night, see if I can clean them up a little bit and make it a little bit better, and see if we can work through that. Because I really do think one of the things that the show is all about, and whether you guys are listening to us on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio or 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation, or you guys are going back later and watching this show on YouTube or Facebook or X, what we're really trying to do is help you as an individual. That's my goal. We're trying to help you as an individual. And one of the things that to me is super helpful and empowering is to understand the mechanisms of what's going on. Now, I understand everybody's brain doesn't work that way. As a matter of fact, men's and women's brains work differently. And they work differently in not as a sexist comment. That's not a sexist comment. They work differently in the way that they fire right side to left side. A man's brain tends to be predominantly left side. Like, we know that it goes up and to the right and over to the left, but that mechanism that fires that way, a man tends to have left brain dominance and has less neurological firing between the right and the left hemispheres. A woman will have an increased amount of firing between the right and left hemispheres. So a woman is going to have a more emotional outlook of the majority of the time, as generally speaking, not any specific speaking. And that's not, I'm not trying to make some sort of sexist statement or anything like that. I'm not doing that at all. I'm saying neurologically, the way the brain actually fires, it fires differently between men and women, right? So, and that's what we know, that because of functional MRI and PET scans and the new things that we're doing now, brain mapping and all that sort of thing. We know that, and we didn't necessarily know it before. So we would say, well, women are a whole lot emotional and men are not, they don't show their emotion or whatever. Well, there's a reason that is the case. There's a reason that the expression, the outward expression, is that way most of the time. And part of the reason is because of the way that the brain is firing. Well, if you didn't know that, then you would come up with all kinds of assumptions about what to do about it if you didn't really understand it. And I think that happens every single day. I can't tell you how many times today, and I've got to do. I was thinking about it today while I was adjusting one patient. I've got to get me a little notepad in there and write down the things, because I think you guys would just benefit extremely to everything that we do. Like, the conversations that I have all day long, I think you guys would benefit extremely to listen to some of those conversations, and or not personally listen to the conversation, but for me to bring them up, because it goes through my head, man, that'd be a great topic to talk about on the radio. That'd be a great topic to talk about on the radio. That'd be something that'd be really cool to talk about tonight. And then, and I know based on the group that I get to take care of, that we don't understand things. We don't understand the mechanisms. And if we don't understand the mechanisms, we will do all kinds of crazy things to solve our problem. Like one of my ladies told me today that she did, this is not a knock on anybody, but she told me that she did wall Pilates. That's what she was telling me. She started doing wall Pilates, and I didn't even understand what she said the first time she said it, and I was like, "What does that mean? What does wall Pilates mean?" I didn't even know. And so she said, "Well, it wasn't what I thought either. I thought it would be less stressful on my knees if or some sort of, you take stress off your body, and really what you just put your foot on the wall and do a lunge with your other leg, or you put your feet on the wall and do a plank or a crunch or something." And so it's just, you're just using the wall to help you stabilize yourself, and then you're doing some of those movements, right? Well, and I kind of laughed, and I said, we're just a bunch of human beings floating around on a big giant rock, just hurling through space. Like, if we didn't come up with some of this stuff, then we'd be bored to death, right? I mean, if we didn't have these awesome shows to listen to every night from 6 to 7, we might just be bored to death. So we just make up stuff to do, right? Well, when it comes to your health, we'll make up all kinds of stuff. I've got one lady, she buys all the stuff she sees on Fox News. She listens to Fox News, she breaks it down for me, tells me what's going on with Trump, and then how evil the Democrats are, and then she'll tell me about the supplement she bought from what she was supposed to help with your nerves, or it's supposed to fix this, or your spinal stenosis, or your thing, or whatever, right? And so we have a tendency of just going off. Another thing we were looking at some super fruits today. We were talking about superfruits at lunch. My daughter and I were, and it was I think a pitaya, maybe Pitaya fruit, and it was on the wall, and it was talking. There was that, and the acai fruit, and there was one other fruit, and they were talking about this is some super fruit that is from South America, a super fruit from South America, something Central or South America, something, right? I don't even know what that means. If you indulge me just a second. What is the definition of superfruit? Does that actually mean something? Yeah. This is just a superfood is a fruit, any fruit supposed to confer remarkable health benefits. Superfruit is a term that is expanding as new discoveries unfold. The definition, what constitutes a superfruit, is involving a reflection of ongoing research findings. Okay, that's good. The future might see a shift from the current perception of popular choices. Let's read this here. I don't even know what this is. I'm just picking out something. Preventative medicine daily. Superfruits are a fruit that offer higher density of nutrients and antioxidants compared to everyday fruits. Well, how do you measure that? And they call them superfruits. They call them superfruits because they're trying to sell them. That's why they're calling superfruits. And if you don't know that, let me tell you, and none of those superfruits beat a blueberry. All the research that I've ever done says that the number one fruit, and it's not even really a fruit, I guess it's a berry, but like blueberries are just as good or better for you than an acai berry. But a blueberry is not sexy, right? And so you can get sold an acai berry or some sort of power Super Bowl super fruit bowl that's supposed to be this super great for you, and if you just ate blueberries and strawberries, you'd be just fine. My point is this, that when we don't know something, we will fall for anything. If we don't understand the mechanisms, we fall for anything. So let's get back into what we were talking about last night. And let me see if I can do a little bit better job of explaining to you so that you can make a better decision for yourself. Okay? Because I don't think I did a super job last night explaining it. And sometimes it just takes me a couple tries, but we've got time to do it. So we'll do it and see if we can get a little bit better. So what we were trying to talk about, we're trying to talk about, and I tried to just back it up a little bit. What we were talking about when we're trying to solve a problem. If we are dealing with anxiety, or if we are dealing with depression, the mechanisms of what caused that. Like I was talking about the guy that checked himself out of the golf tournament last week and then went and killed himself. And he had said multiple times how many times he had been dealing with anxiety and depression. And what do we know based on our study of neurology, the neuroscience study? What do we know these days about what is actually going on with anxiety and depression? And if you want to just listen to Ian McGilchrist, you can go listen. One of the best YouTube videos I've ever seen is Ian McGilchrist talking to Jordan Peterson. That's a fabulous video to watch. But if you just let's talk about anxiety and depression, and what happens neurologically with anxiety and depression, and what is so just take the brain, because you guys might be dealing with anxiety or depression, and let's just split the brain in half for a second, okay? And let's just talk about the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain. If we're talking about the right side of the brain, and let's just say that we have overactivity. Overactivity in the right hemisphere is going to give us anxiety. Now, we all know, because you've watched this show enough times, we all know that the right hemisphere deals with the unknown. It deals with the unknown. And dealing with the unknown makes us anxious, right? Like one of my guys had to get his dogs in the middle at 3 o'clock this morning because the storm was hitting his house. It was so loud that he grabbed his dogs, he went to the basement, and he was like, I just want this to end. And he covered the dogs all up in a blanket and then covered himself up in the blanket and then put his hands over his ears because the storm was so loud. And he showed me the pictures. It blew the pillars, the brick pillars of his fence over. It blew the fence over, and then it blew the brick pillars over, and then it blew the captain's chair or the lifeguard chair that he had at his swimming pool over into the swimming pool, and then ripped the whole top of the swimming pool cover all to pieces, and then broke and shattered glass was everywhere in the backyard. I mean, it was a very anxious moment. It was very unknown for him. He heard it come in the middle of the night. He didn't know if he was getting hit by a tornado. It was very unknown, and it caused a high level of anxiety because what happened in a very short period of time is there was a massive overactivity of the right hemisphere of the brain. Now, if you're dealing with anxiety, I would be willing to bet you are asking yourself questions. You're saying sentences to yourself that end in a question mark. How are we going to solve this problem? What's going to happen? How are we going to get through this situation? What are we going to do with the bills? How am I going to lose 10 pounds before my family reunion? What am I going to do when my husband dies of this brain tumor? That's what's going on in my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's life, right? She's getting anxiety every single day. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger because she's in an unknown world that's getting worse and worse and worse because he gets closer and closer and closer to dying every single day. So if you're dealing with anxiety, if you feel very anxious right now, I would be willing to bet you that what you're saying to yourself, you're asking yourself questions that you don't know the answer to. That would constitute unknown. Okay? That would constitute unknown. Another thing that we deal with is depression. And how does depression work? Well, we've got an underactivity of the left hemisphere. We've got an underactivity of the left hemisphere, which now means the right hemisphere is getting unchecked, which now the right hemisphere is looking for the tigers. Now the right hemisphere is looking for, let's draw it across this way, is looking for the threat. And if the right hemisphere is looking for the threat, that's depressing because you're spending your entire day looking for the threat. There is depression. Okay, so depression and anxiety are both overactivity of the right brain, but in different manners. The right hemisphere is dealing with either there's too much activity in that right hemisphere. And one of the things that happens is that once we get our beautiful up and to the right, over to the left pathway working, then we get a constant back and forth working between the two hemispheres that keeps it in check. The right hemisphere, the left hemisphere, they go back and forth. And now they check each other a little bit. The right hemisphere tells the left hemisphere, calm down just a little bit. The left hemisphere tells the right hemisphere to calm down just a little bit. And they kind of keep themselves in check. And that's good for us because it keeps us balanced. If we have a underactivity of our right hemisphere, what we will get from that, I'll draw it on out here, is what we will get from that is undue cheerfulness. Undue cheerfulness, which you're like, what's wrong with that? Well, you're just happy for no reason whatsoever all the time because you don't think there's any threat at all. When you have underactivity of that right hemisphere, then you have undue cheerfulness, and now part of it is because the left hemisphere there's no threat on the left side. The left hemisphere doesn't deal with threat. The left hemisphere deals with the known. This is the known world. I know how to fix that. I know how to handle that. I know how to do that. That's when you say that to yourself, when you're like, I know the answer to that. I know how to fix that. I know how to solve that. There's nothing threatening about that. So what do I have to be uncheerful about if my left brain is overactive and not maybe let's not say overactive. My left brain is being unchecked by my right brain. My right brain is underactive, so it's not inhibiting my left brain at all, or like it should be. And so now I've got this undue cheerfulness because I just think I can conquer the world and I can do anything. And that's pretty funny because that's about like me and Leslie right there. I more than likely have overactivity. I have this undue optimism. Like we can do it. We can fix it. We can do it. We can build it. We can make it happen. Like, come on. And every time I have a conversation with Leslie, she's like a downer. She's like, no, that's not going to work. This is horrible. This is that's not. What do you mean? How are you? What are you saying? She starts asking me a bunch of questions. Why? Because a man has a tendency to be left brain active, and a woman has a tendency to be able to communicate side to side between the right side and the left side of the brain. That woman is seeing both sides of the picture, that man seeing only the undue cheerfulness side of the picture. How many times you gotten in a fight with your spouse over that issue right there? Your spouse, if he's a man, is too optimistic, and you're trying to show him balance. And how many times do the guys get themselves in trouble because they just go for it? Now, the catch on that is that by going for it, then we actually do stuff. And sometimes the girls, and this is not, I'm not talking about all guys and all girls. Don't take this in a sexist standpoint. I'm saying brain activity. It's kind of how it works. So the girls will see, no, I don't think it's a sexist statement because I think it's actually more intelligent to be able to see both sides. That's one of the things that I'm working on as a male, is to understand right side to left side activity. That's super important to me, is to not be one-sided. But let's get back to what I was talking about. When we're just dealing with anxiety and we're just dealing with depression, okay? You're dealing with it. You have it. You're coming off of it. You've got it in your family. You've got it with your child. Something's going on, right? So anxiety. Let me clear this out. We got right side and left side. Let's go back to overactivity of the right hemisphere. Overactivity of the right hemisphere is giving us anxiety. Okay, let's go back to our up and to the right pathway, but we're not getting the over to the left pathway. So, where is focused attention? Focused attention is on the left. But we're stuck in the right and we're not getting the firing over to the left. So if we lack focused attention, what will they tell us that we have? If we lack focused attention, what will be our diagnosis? Right? And you guys can get it now, right? What if we don't have focused attention, then our diagnosis is going to be attention deficit disorder. I don't have focused attention. Why do I not have? And how many people that have ADD also have anxiety? A lot of them. Goes hand in hand. Those two things work together. Almost every person, every new patient that I have that comes into the office that's on anxiety medication is also on some ADD medication. They're told they got them both. I've got attention deficit disorder and I've got anxiety. Why? Because I have overactivity in my right hemisphere. I'm stuck in there. I do not have my right side to left side pathway. And now I'm not able to focus attention because why would you? If you have overactivity, on the threat, that would cause anxiety. So why would I be able to focus my attention if I thought there was a threat in the room? I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I wouldn't focus. Why would I focus on one thing if I was worried about getting eaten by the alligator or the tiger that was somewhere around me? I know there's one around me. I just can't see him. I don't know where the tiger is. There's a tiger in here somewhere, and it's scaring the crap out of me. And I don't know where it is. And someone says, "Well, you're just all over the place. You just can't focus on anything." And it's like, where what am I supposed to focus on when my whole entire universe is threatening, right? That those two things work together. Okay, we got to go to a break, but when we get back we'll work into the dopamine. We'll work on the dopamine, and when we get back from the break, so that we can kind of say, hey, look, why can't I quit eating sugar? That's what we'll do. You guys hanging with me? This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we'll be right back. Okay. While we're on the break, let's just talk about this because it'd be just as easy to talk about with you guys. It doesn't have to be a tiger, right? We've discussed this a couple of weeks ago. It's on a scale that from curious to psycho. The unknown. I could be sitting here worried that there are tigers in this building. And I would be really anxious about that. That would really cause me some anxiety if I could actually understand that there are tigers in here, right? That's an unknown threat to me. It's unknown, and if it's tigers, I'm gonna have a really big reaction to that. But it would be just as distracting to me if there was a bunch of kitty cats. If there were kitty cats in here. If I suspected that there were kitty cats in here, maybe I'm 11 years old and I don't have anything really that's threatening me in my life. I got two parents, I got plenty of food, I got an awesome room, I got friends, I got all the coolest cleats and the baseball bat. I got it all. I'm just like a kid in South Lubbock somewhere, right? Like Southwest Lubbock. I'm living the dream. I'm playing video games all day long. I got the coolest gaming system. I got a whole specialized couch that's in my bedroom, right? But if my brain is overactive in the right hemisphere, I might be looking for kitty cats all day long. They're not big unknown threats like they're going to eat me. They're unknown, curious things. I'm curious about something all the time. I'm curious about what's over there. I'm curious about what's over here. I'm curious about what's behind the desk, right? Hang on, let me get us back on. Okay, everybody, we're back. And we're talking about, this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're talking about the brain and overactivity and underactivity and right side and left side. And we're talking about your 11-year-old kid. We're talking about your 10, 11-year-old kid that doesn't have any threats. Mom and dad are at home. Everything's fine. There's no threats out there. But this kid can't pay attention because this kid is always looking. He's curious about everything. He's things are unknown to him. Like what's over there? Like what's over there? Like, okay, like how's this work? Like what is this? What's this box about? Oh, there you go. All right, well, this is a little deal right here. Oh, well, here's another thing that's over here. And what is that? Right? It's like there's stuff everywhere. And that's your ADD kid. Your attention deficit kid. He's not psycho dealing with threats. He's curious dealing with threats, but dealing with the unknown. The whole thing is unknown to him, so it makes him curious, right? Well, he's got overactivity in that right hemisphere and underactivity in that left hemisphere, and he can't focus because he's got underactivity in that left hemisphere because he's not achieving that right side to left side brain. He's not achieving this. Oops, let me draw it in blue. He's not achieving that. That is not happening for whatever reason. And what we're getting this right side deal and we're getting this left side deal. Okay, so what does that have to do with dopamine? Let's grow up a little bit. Let's get a little bit older than 11 or 12, right? Let's get a little bit, let's get 15, 16, 17, 22, 24, 40, 50, 60. Let's get on up a little bit with this. If we have this same activity going on, this model where we've got overactivity in the right hemisphere, underactivity in the left hemisphere, remember that the right hemisphere, I know, I'm just going to just say it. I need to quit saying we've said this before because I'm just going to keep saying it for not the next 20, 30, 40, 60 years. The right hemisphere has an affinity for adrenaline. That's what's going to happen when this unknown activity starts to fire and the amygdala fires the locus coeruleus and the locus coeruleus floods the brain with adrenaline. That's going to happen. And there's more adrenaline receptors on the right hemisphere than there are on the left. It doesn't mean that the left hemisphere doesn't respond to adrenaline. It just means that the right hemisphere has an affinity for it. That means that there's more receptors over there, that it likes it better on the right side. And the left hemisphere has an affinity for dopamine. That left hemisphere does. So, dopamine is the neurotransmitter of motivation. It's what makes us move. It's what makes us get up and go. It's what drives us forward in life. If you've got low dopamine, you don't have any motivation. You don't have any desire to do anything. You don't care about anything. You don't have any desire to do anything. It's for the birds anyway. Just leave it alone. I don't care. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to make my life better. I'm not going to clean my room. I'm not going to make my bed. I'm not going to put my shoes up. Nothing. I don't care. What difference does it make? I've got no motivation. Okay, well, we're living in a world today where you can nearly get by with that. You'll have a parent come to your rescue. You'll have a spouse come to your rescue. You'll live in pitiful environment, but you'll at least make it. You'll have some sort of welfare system that'll give you a little bit. You'll figure out a way to play the system, or you'll go get a 99-cent hamburger or a 49-cent taco. You'll live off a Taco Tuesday. You'll live as minimal as you possibly can. You'll find the cheapest food anywhere, and you will almost be able to survive this world. I know several people. I know a 30-something-year-old kid that all he does all day long is sit in his room and plays video games, and his mom and dad take care of everything, including his child. And they make up some story about how he's autistic and he just can't handle it. I've seen the kid. I've evaluated the kid. The kid's not autistic. The kid is right hemisphere dominant, left hemisphere crashed, low dopamine person. He fits exactly this category. So let's don't take the extreme. Let's take the middle. Let's take the middle of the pack. Let's take you and me. Let's take you and me, and let's talk about what happens to us when we get stuck in this anxiety thing, right? Because how many people have heard the term stress eating? Well, man, when I'm stressed out, I just eat whatever, right? Why do we do that? Why do we collectively, when we get stressed out, why do we do that? Why do we stress eat? Just based on what you can see right here on the screen, and if you guys are on the radio, you can go back and catch us later and listen and see this at Walk by Faith. But what what would what would what would we want? What would cause us right here? What would cause us to stress eat? What is the mechanism of stress eating? The mechanism of stress eating is that we've got the overactivity in the right hemisphere. We don't have the activity going to the left, so we've got a decrease. We've got a decrease in left hemisphere activity, which now decreases the dopamine in the left hemisphere. And that's what I was trying to express last night when I was talking about what Robert Lustig was saying, is that if you were to draw a dopamine curve, it would be a bell curve, and there is a sweet spot in the middle of the bell curve, and that bell curve means that if we have dopamine at that level, there's a sweet spot on your thermostat in your house. Okay, if you set your thermostat to if you set your thermostat to 55 and you turned it all the way down to 55, it would not be comfortable in your house. You would be freezing, right? You turn your air conditioner on, set your thermostat at 55. You'd have to go get a coat. You'd be sitting in there in the living room under a blanket and a coat because it would be freezing in your house because your air conditioner would just be driving it down, right? Okay, let's set the thermostat to 90. Let's set it all the way up to 90, and then let's sit in there in the living room. We'd be sitting in our underwear. We'd have a pair of shorts on. We'd have a fan going. We'd be trying to cool down. We'd be sweating in there, and because it'd be too hot in our house because it's not the sweet spot, right? So there's a middle. There's a middle that's a sweet spot. It's like, hey, look, somewhere in the 68 to 72 range for most people is probably a pretty sweet spot to set your thermostat on, because it kind of makes it relatively comfortable inside your house, and it's not too hot, it's not too cold. It's a Goldilocks moment right there, right? That's the sweet spot. Well, that's the same thing that we desire. If we can keep our dopamine in a sweet spot in our left hemisphere, all across our brain, but the left hemisphere has an affinity for it. The right hemisphere works off of dopamine, but the whole thing, the left hemisphere has a little bit more affinity for dopamine. So if we can hit that sweet spot right there, we are motivated to move forward. We have desire to move forward and to get something done and to make something of ourselves and to conquer the day and make life better for ourselves and our family and our community and our state and our nation and our world. We have desire to do that. We have the motivation, the internal motivation to do that chemically, because we're in the sweet spot. If we drive the dopamine past the middle of the sweet spot, and now we drive the dopamine over here into where we have too much dopamine, it makes us very irritable. We get irritable. I think it's how you spell it. Irritable. Irritability. Yeah. So I think that's it. If it's not, forgive me. But we get very irritable if we've got too much of this chemistry in our brain. If we've got too much of it, it'll push us over in that direction. If we don't have enough, if we're low, and we're over here on the left side of the bell curve, then we don't have any motivation and we get lethargic. So we're just blah. We're not doing well at all. If we're pushed over to the left of the curve, we don't have any motivation. We won't do anything. If we're pushed over to the right of the curve, we get very irritable. There's too much of it. Okay. If we're not getting any firing over there to that left hemisphere, what happens is we start moving towards the left side of the curve. We start decreasing the amount of dopamine that we have on the left side, which makes us very unmotivated. So what will we do to get motivated? What is the thing that will, like, what we don't want to feel that bad. It's not fun to feel that unmotivated. It's not, we don't like it. As people, we don't like it. It's not happy. It's depressing when we do that, right? We don't want to do that. We want something to make life valuable. We want to find something that gives us some reason to get up and do something. We need that motivation. We need that energy. We need that drive, because this sucks. It's like, this sucks. Everything sucks. Life sucks. Like, my day sucks. My whole life sucks. Like, everything. What the heck? This show sucks. Like, this whole business sucks. Lubbock sucks. Texas sucks. All of them. It's just like Democrats and Republicans. They all suck. Everything is just blah. Right? We know those people. They just have that, right? So it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable for us. It's a bad fitting shirt. It's too tight of a ball cap. It's not comfortable to be pushed to the left side of our dopamine curve. So we will just, by default, because we couldn't in the beginning. There was almost nothing that we could do to get that, to solve that problem 2,000, 4,000, 6,000 years ago. We wouldn't debate. But now, in the world that we live in, where we have access to multiple dopamine stimulating substances or situations, we will choose to start to eat something that gives us dopamine. That's where we will start to choose refined, carbohydrates. And I'll make that simple. We'll just call it sugar. Because that's our thing. That's what we'll start to do, is we'll start to go to sugar. Or we'll start to go to alcohol. Or we'll start to go to pornography. Or we'll start to go to driving fast, or whatever our thing is. We'll pick a fight. We'll do something that causes us to have an increased amount of dopamine to push us from the blue back towards the middle of the curve. That's what will happen to us. That's why we eat sugar. I can promise you, the only reason you eat sugar is because you're trying to get dopamine in the left hemisphere. I believe that with 100% of my heart. I believe that with everything that I've ever studied. You don't eat sugar because, just go listen to Charles Zucker at Cornell University. Go listen and study what he's trying to say. We do not eat sugar because we love the taste of sugar. We eat sugar because we love the sugar in our brain. It makes us feel better. Except we have mechanisms that try to keep us right there in the middle. The hard part about external sources of dopamine is that it's hard to just have a little bit and put us in the middle. One of my guys I talked to today, has low blood sugar and hypoglycemia. So he got one of those patches, one of those blood sugar sensors or whatever, right? And so he can look at it on his phone. And he said to me, he said, in the past, when I felt my blood sugar getting really low, I would just eat some Skittles. And I laughed because I was like, okay, that's one of those things that we talked about. Remember, we talked about how that was the whole eat your chicken soup when you get a cold and the flu and drink a Sprite and all that stuff. No, dude, seriously. Don't tell someone to eat something that would make them sick when they're sick trying to balance their physiology. That is not the way that you solve hypoglycemia. That's part of the problem with hypoglycemia, is it's up and down and up and down. There's no place. I mean, the only time that you would eat a Skittles is if you didn't have anything else to eat on the earth and you were about to die from hypoglycemia, then you could eat some Skittles. That's the one time that would make any sense. Other than that, you wouldn't give someone Skittles to make them healthy. It doesn't make any sense. But what he said to me was this: I used to eat a whole handful, but what I discovered by checking my glucose is that a whole handful or a whole bag of Skittles spiked my insulin and drove me over the top. Yep, we know that, right? So I figured out if I just have 2 of them, that's all I need. That puts me back to where I need to be. It brings my sugar back to where it's supposed to be. If I just have 2 of them, right? But how do we measure that with dopamine in our brain? There's not a patch that I know of, that I'm aware of. There's not a patch that we can stick on the left side of our head that tells us what our dopamine level is, and then measure it on whether or not we just need one little bite of Reese's Cup or one little tortilla or one little bite of some ice cream. Those things that we eat when we're searching for foods, right? Those things, we don't have a patch to tell us that. So what we do is we go to those things like alcohol, like sugar, like peanut butter cups, like ice cream, like all those things that we need, that we feel like we need in order to stay motivated. That's what we go to. But we don't have any way to regulate that and stop it in the middle of the curve. So what we deal with now is we deal with driving us past the middle of the curve over into the irritable part, over into having too much of it. And so, because we'll go back to yesterday what we were talking about of the ventral tegmental area firing the dopamine into the nucleus accumbens. And the leptin resistance, that the leptin that is released from our fat cells, that's supposed to tell us we've had enough. Oh, dude, all you needed was one bite of the peanut butter cup. You just needed one bite of it. So you ate the one bite. The one bite went into the system activated all the chemistry released, the fat cells released the leptin's supposed to go to the brain and tell the brain that's all you need, that's enough. But now we're leptin resistant for lots of different reasons, mostly because we've hit those cells so many times that we have absorbed the receptors that respond to leptin on whatever cell that we're dealing with. So we've had all these receptors that are all on this cell, but they respond to the leptin, but we've hit those leptin receptors so many times that now they don't respond properly. And so what is this cell going to do? It's not going to respond to leptin. We become leptin resistant. So now we become leptin resistant. We don't have a stop mechanism to tell us to stop eating the peanut butter cups. So we keep driving and driving the dopamine on into the nucleus accumbens. We keep firing that through the ventral tegmental area to the point where now the same exact problem happens. We absorb, instead of leptin receptors, we change the cell and we have dopamine receptors, and the same exact mechanism happens where now we don't have any dopamine receptors, or we have 10 times less the dopamine receptors, which means in order to have the same amount of motivation, to order to have the same feeling of motivation, we have to increase the amount of external dopamine that we're driving. We have to eat 3 bowls of ice cream. We have to have 13 pieces of pizza. 1 piece of pizza doesn't do us any good anymore. I got to have 6 pieces of pizza. And I can tell you that's the truth because I lived that life. We would get 2 pizzas for 30 years at my house. We would get 2 pizzas, one for Leslie and the kids and one for me. And I would eat the whole daggum pizza. I could eat a medium pizza by myself with no problem. And sometimes I could eat a large pizza by myself with no problem. I could eat an entire bag of Reese's peanut butter cups by myself. No problem. And when I was finished, I'd be sick as a dog, and then I'd be asking myself, dude, why did you do that? Why do you do that? It's so stupid. It's like, why do you do that? Because 1 Reese's cup wasn't enough. 1 peanut butter cup didn't get it done. Why? Because 1 peanut butter cup on my tongue fired, and then the sugar got to my gut. The gut fired through the vagus nerve into my brain, in the ventral tegmental area, fired the dopamine to the nucleus accumbens, and I never got that feeling of pleasure because I had downregulated the dopamine receptors on those cells, and 1 peanut butter cup didn't do me any good. I got no motivation out of it. I needed another one. I needed another one. As fast as you can unwrap them, and I know you guys have done this same thing, as fast as you can do the little miniatures, you either take all the wrapping off, throw it in your mouth, grab the next one, throw the wrapping over to the side, unwrap it, chew the one that you got in your mouth, unwrap the one that you're unwrapping as fast as you can possibly do it, get that one eaten, and then grab your next one. You would eat 15 miniatures before you even took a breath. Like you'd have 15, it'd be a whole bag. It's just like 15 minutes gone by, I ate a whole bag of king size miniatures. No problem. And then as soon as I did, I got sick. I was like, why did I do that? And then I got depressed because it was like the chemistry of that kicked in. And then I was like, why? Dadgummit, dude, don't do that. And I know I know you do the same exact thing with alcohol. Just going to have 1 beer, but then the 1 beer doesn't do anything for you. And then so I got to have 2 beers. And then pretty soon 2 beers don't do anything for you. And so now I got to have 2 beers and 14 tacos to get me into that. And now I got to have another. Let's have margarita. Let's add some stronger stuff. Now let's put some salt on the outside of the rim or some sugar on the outside of the rim so that now I can increase it and increase it more. I got to have a bigger margarita. I can't just have a small margarita. I got to have a big margarita now. Because it didn't work, right? That's the mechanism right there. We've run out of time tonight, but we're going to pick up where we left off. I'm going to leave this on here for tomorrow night, and we're going to pick up where we left off tonight, and we're going to see if we can start to really understand, now that we get this a little bit, see if we can understand how anxiety is not being served by us having a dopamine-driven diet. Yeah, I think that was a little better. Maybe that was a little better tonight, and maybe if we try it again tomorrow night, we'll get this worked out, and so you guys can have a better chance of helping yourself or your loved ones when it comes to how we can solve this whole anxiety, depression, ADD, overeating, driving our dopamine lifestyle that we all got ourselves into. You guys have a great night. I'll talk to you tomorrow.